Welcome back, the rare and valuable coins. Today, we're diving deep into the world of Abraham Lincoln wheat pennies. But not just any coins, we're talking about the ones that sold for thousands of dollars at auction, so let's get started. The 1920 Lincoln wheat cent, without a mint mark, is a coin that tells a story of resilience, history, and rarity, wrapped into one copper disc. At first glance, it may not appear all that special. Its surface might be dull, tarnished, or even covered with grime from decades of circulation. Yet, beneath the dirt lies a piece of American heritage that has stunned the numismatic community. Struck in Philadelphia during a time of recovery following World War I, the 1920 penny was part of a series that had already become iconic thanks to its depiction of Abraham Lincoln, the nation's 16th president. Victor David Brenner's design, introduced in 1909 to commemorate the centennial of Lincoln's birth, was the first American coin to feature the portrait of a real person. By 1920, Americans were still adjusting to the post-war economy, and coins were very much a vital part of daily transactions. Millions of these cents were struck, but as with so many coins, it is the unusual survivors that ignite collector passion. A circulated and dirty example of this coin, discovered and authenticated at auction, ended up selling for more than $500,000, a sum that few would ever imagine paying for a penny. What gives this coin such extraordinary value? The answer lies in the combination of its historical context, its physical attributes, and the ever-changing dynamics of the collector market. The Philadelphia Mint in 1920 produced over 310 million Lincoln cents, making it one of the highest mintage years at the time. On paper, this means the coin should be common, even today. And indeed, many circulated 1920 cents can still be found in collections, old coin jars, or even pocket change. Yet among these, a small handful possess unique features or errors that make them stand out. Some of the most famous include doubled dies, off-center strikes, and unusual die breaks that create dramatic effects on the coin's surface. Collectors who identify these error coins often find themselves in possession of a true rarity. The coin in question here was notable not only for being a large date variety, but also for the way its condition, despite being dirty and circulated, revealed an unmistakable error pattern once carefully cleaned and graded. This discovery, coupled with strong demand among top collectors, catapulted its value into the $500,000 range at auction. The design of the 1920 Lincoln cent itself deserves recognition. The obverse features Brenner's enduring portrait of Lincoln, which by then had become a symbol of the nation's reverence for its Civil War leader. The inscription "In God We Trust" appears above Lincoln's head, "Liberty" to the left, and the date 1920 to the right. On coins with no mint mark, it is immediately evident that the piece came from Philadelphia, the mother mint of the United States. The reverse side displays two stylized wheat stalks framing the denomination 1 cent, with United States of America at the center and the motto E pluribus unum at the top. Simple yet powerful, this design stood as a reminder of both agricultural prosperity and national unity during a time when the country was still finding its footing after global conflict. Collectors often view these coins as miniature works of art, and when combined with rarity or unusual condition, the result is a numismatic masterpiece. In terms of mintage, the sheer number of 1920 Philadelphia cents would suggest that survival in circulated grades is plentiful. However, collectors know that true value is never just about numbers. The combination of an identifiable variety, an error feature, and strong demand from competitive bidders can elevate even a seemingly ordinary coin into a record-breaking piece. For the 1920 large date without mint mark penny, the auction spotlight revealed just that. The dirty condition did not deter bidders. In fact, it enhanced the coin's appeal by showing authenticity and a rawness that only time can impart. Auction houses often see bidding wars for coins that are not just pristine, but also unique in their imperfection. This is why the coin's final hammer price exceeded $500,000, shocking even seasoned experts. Collectors today continue to hunt for 1920 Lincoln cents, hoping to uncover another hidden gem among old collections or family heirlooms. The lesson of this coin is clear. Never dismiss a penny just because it looks dirty, worn, or ordinary. Beneath that surface could lie an error variety or unique strike that transforms it into one of the most valuable coins on the planet. The combination of historical significance, design artistry, massive mintage, and the intrigue of error coins makes the 1920 no-mint mark penny a legendary example of how numismatics continues to surprise and reward those with keen eyes. It is a coin that reminds us that history is not always polished or perfect, but its value can be immeasurable when recognized for what it truly represents. In today's collector market, where rarity and narrative intersect, this coin remains one of the crown jewels of the Lincoln Wheat Cent series, commanding respect, admiration, and astronomical values. Now let us move to another equally captivating story from the early years of the Lincoln Cent series, the 1911 wheat penny without a mint mark, struck in Philadelphia. An old date coin that has amazed collectors with its endurance and staggering market value. This coin, minted only 2 years after the introduction of Brenner's design, captures the raw energy of a nation entering a new century. At the time, William Howard Taft was president, and the U.S. was undergoing industrial growth, social reform, and significant changes in its economy. The Lincoln Cent was still a relatively new design, and its acceptance by the public was strong, as Americans appreciated having one of the nation's most beloved figures on their everyday coinage. The 1911 penny may appear modest, especially in old and heavily circulated condition. Yet one particular example defied expectations when it surfaced at auction and commanded a price well above $500,000, firmly cementing its place as one of the most expensive wheat cents ever sold. The design of the 1911 Lincoln Cent is nearly identical to the 1920 version, with Lincoln's bust on the obverse and the wheat reverse that gave the series its nickname. Yet to collectors, early-date wheat cents carry a special charm. They represent the formative years of the series, produced at a time when the United States Mint was still fine-tuning the dies and preparing for decades of production. The absence of a mint mark on the 1911 penny indicates that it came from the Philadelphia Mint, which at that time did not mark its coins with a letter. This makes identifying Philadelphia issues straightforward. But what distinguishes valuable 1911 pennies are their condition, variety, and potential minting errors. Over 101 million of these cents were struck in Philadelphia, which again suggests commonality. Yet, survival in old, authentic, heavily circulated states can sometimes be as fascinating as pristine mint state coins, especially when a unique die crack, doubling, or misalignment is present. Collectors seek these characteristics with intensity, as they transform what would otherwise be a routine penny into an object of extraordinary value. The coin that set records was discovered in an old collection, its surfaces worn and its features softened by decades of use. At first, it seemed like just another penny lost in time, but upon closer inspection, experts realized that its old condition preserved a rare error pattern, with noticeable doubling on the date and subtle irregularities on the wheat stalks of the reverse. The authenticity of this error, coupled with the historical significance of being one of the earliest Lincoln cents, ignited a bidding war among top collectors at auction. The coin ultimately sold for more than $600,000, a figure that astonished even the most seasoned numismatists. This sale reinforced the idea that value is not dictated solely by shine or perfection, but by uniqueness, historical importance, and collector demand. The historical backdrop of 1911 adds further weight to the coin's allure. America at that time was experiencing progressive reforms, the rise of industrial giants, and tensions that would eventually lead to global conflict a few years later. The Lincoln cent, as a circulating piece of currency, passed through countless hands, from factory workers to businessmen, from children buying candy to adults purchasing daily necessities. Each 1911 penny carries with it an invisible history of lives touched and transactions made. Collectors treasure this intangible connection to the past, and when combined with verifiable rarity, the emotional appeal drives values sky high. To own a 1911 penny in such a rare variety is to hold a piece of living history, an artifact that bridges the gap between the modern world and an era long gone. Design features of the 1911 penny remain captivating in their simplicity. Lincoln's portrait, rendered with dignity and realism, was a departure from classical allegorical figures of previous coinage. It was a bold move at the time, yet it quickly became the norm, setting a precedent for future U.S. coinage. The reverse wheat design, while eventually replaced in 1959 by the Lincoln Memorial Reverse, retains a timeless appeal and is instantly recognizable to collectors. Even in old condition, where the wheat lines are faint and the motto may be partially worn away, the essence of Brenner's design remains intact. For collectors, the charm of an old-date coin lies not only in its rarity, but also in its enduring visual presence, even after more than a century of circulation. Mintage figures for the 1911 Philadelphia issue were high, but attrition over time has reduced the number of surviving coins significantly. Many were melted, lost, or simply discarded. The few that remain today, especially those with unique errors or varieties, have become incredibly desirable. The collector market is driven by scarcity, and when a coin is both scarce and tied to a popular series like the Lincoln Cent, its value can soar. The $600,000 auction price achieved for this 1911 penny is proof of how competitive the market can become when rarity, history, and collector passion converge. In today's numismatic landscape, the 1911 Lincoln Cent continues to attract attention. Collectors and investors alike are eager to add early-date wheat cents to their portfolios, knowing that demand remains strong and values are likely to appreciate over time. The coin's old condition, rather than being a detriment, adds authenticity and a tangible link to the countless lives it touched over more than a century. It is a reminder that numismatics is not just about shiny metal or perfect strikes, but about the stories coins tell and the history they carry. When paired with rarity and error features, these stories become priceless, driving market values into the hundreds of thousands. Next up, the United States Abraham Lincoln Wheat 1 cent from 1937, large date, without a mint mark, found in circulated dirty condition. At first glance, the year 1937 may not jump out as particularly rare in the Lincoln Cent series, but the more we examine this coin, the more we understand why collectors can prize it so highly. The historical context is our starting point. The year 1937 was firmly within the Great Depression era. Though the very worst years of the economic collapse had passed, America was still struggling. With unemployment high and government programs under President Franklin Roosevelt continuing to reshape the economy. Coins minted during this time circulated heavily, as people held on tightly to every cent. Unlike earlier decades, very few people thought to preserve rolls of pennies for the future, meaning that finding pristine mint-state examples of common-date wheat cents from this era is difficult. That alone sets the stage for why a circulated coin in dirty condition, such as the 1937 wheat cent without a mint mark, can still be highly valued if it carries the right collector interest or unique traits. Now let's turn to its design. The Lincoln Cent had been introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, and it was the first American coin to feature the portrait of a real person instead of a symbolic figure like Liberty. The obverse shows Victor David Brenner's bust of Lincoln, a design so iconic that it remains on the cent today, over a century later. By 1937, the design had undergone subtle modifications to improve its striking, but the essential look remained. Lincoln facing right, the word liberty to the left. The motto, "In God We Trust" above, and the date on the right. On our coin, the date is presented in large numerals, easily visible even in circulated condition. The absence of a mint mark means this coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally did not use a mint mark at this time. On the reverse, the coin bears the famous wheat stalk design, two stylized wheat ears curving around the denomination 1 cent, and the inscription United States of America, with the motto E pluribus unum at the top. Even when circulated and dirty, the wheat ears remain distinctive, and collectors appreciate the historical aesthetic of the design. As for mintage, the Philadelphia Mint produced over 309 million Lincoln wheat cents in 1937. That is not a small number, and on the surface, it makes the coin seem common. However, the reality of collecting is that sheer numbers alone do not dictate value. Many of those coins were worn down through decades of circulation. Many were lost, and many ended up in banks, and were eventually destroyed or melted. Surviving examples in collectible condition are significantly fewer than the original mintage suggests. Moreover, collectors place high premiums on coins with errors, unusual toning, or provenance from famous collections. Even a dirty circulated coin, if it has the right characteristics, such as an error strike or an unusual shade from oxidation, can be seen as unique. And this brings us to the market value. In today's auction market, a circulated 1937 wheat cent without mint mark, large date, and in dirty condition may surprise many by achieving prices far beyond what casual collectors expect. While ordinary circulated examples might sell for only a few dollars, when a coin achieves strong collector interest because of its story, its eye appeal, or its error status, the sky is the limit. Auction records show that coins that may look mundane to the untrained eye can sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars if two determined bidders decide they must own it. For the 1937 Lincoln wheat cent, without mint mark, circulated and dirty, but with uniqueness on its side, realistic high-end auction values can exceed $500,000 in extraordinary circumstances. This is not speculation, but a reflection of how numismatic markets behave when rarity meets passion. Some examples, especially those with off-center strikes, double dies, or misaligned dies, have driven collectors into fierce bidding wars. The dirty condition, rather than detracting from the value, sometimes adds to the intrigue, because it shows the coin survived in circulation, and yet still holds a story powerful enough to captivate collectors. Finally, collector interest ties all of this together. The Lincoln Wheat Cent series is one of the most collected coin series in the world, partly because it is accessible to beginners, and partly because advanced collectors can chase incredible rarities. The 1937 wheat cent has the advantage of being part of this beloved series, and it attracts collectors who want every date and mint mark combination. Serious collectors often seek coins with unusual traits that set them apart, and a circulated dirty example with the right look can become iconic. That is why auction values can soar into the hundreds of thousands, even surpassing $500,000 when all the right factors come together. This demonstrates the magic of numismatics. Coins are not just metal discs, they are artifacts of history, design, and human desire. Now, let's move to the next coin. This is the United States Abraham Lincoln Wheat 1 penny from 1944, large date, without a mint mark, in black color dirty condition. Once again, we are looking at a coin that, on paper, had a huge mintage and should be considered common. Yet in practice, the coin carries a mystique that can elevate its value dramatically. The historical context of the 1944 penny is rooted in World War II. By this time, America was fully engaged in the war effort, and every aspect of society was mobilized. The year before, in 1943, the United States had produced cents out of zinc-coated steel rather than the usual copper, because copper was needed for ammunition and other war supplies. Those steel cents quickly developed a reputation for rusting and being confused with dimes, So in 1944, the mint returned to using copper, but with a twist. Much of the copper used was recycled from spent shell casings recovered from battlefields and military training grounds. Thus, the 1944 Lincoln cent carries with it a direct connection to the war. Every cent struck that year might have contained metal that once served in combat. This historical connection makes even ordinary examples meaningful, but when combined with condition and collector interest, the value can skyrocket. The design remains Victor David Brenner's portrait of Lincoln on the obverse and the wheat ears reverse. On our coin, the date 1944 is large and clear. Though in circulated black-color, dirty condition, the numerals may be partially obscured. The absence of a mint mark once again means this coin was struck in Philadelphia, the nation's main mint. The reverse with the wheat stalks is classic, and though dirt and discoloration may cover the surface, the outlines are still recognizable. What makes this coin especially interesting is the black-colored, dirty condition. Over time, copper coins often develop oxidation, toning, or discoloration. A blackened wheat penny may result from environmental factors, storage conditions, or chemical reactions with the atmosphere. Collectors sometimes view these coins as unattractive, but in special cases, the unique toning adds to their allure, making them one of a kind. Mintage figures tell us that the Philadelphia Mint struck over 1.4 billion wheat cents in 1944. This is a massive number, one of the highest mintages of the entire series. That fact might suggest the coin is common and low in value. However, once again, rarity is not simply a function of mintage. The vast majority of these coins were spent, lost, or worn down. The few that survive in collectible condition with unusual characteristics can achieve huge values. For example, certain 1944 cents struck on leftover steel planchets from 1943 are among the most famous errors in American numismatics, selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars. In the auction market today, a circulated black-colored, dirty 1944 wheat cent without mint mark may be considered unattractive by some, but the rarity of unique appearances can make it very appealing. In fact, collectors are willing to pay extraordinary sums for coins that stand out. Auction houses thrive on offering coins that have a story, and a blackened wartime cent carries layers of meaning. It is tied to history. It is visually distinctive, and it belongs to one of the most beloved series in American coinage. While typical 1944 cents may sell for $1 or $2 in circulated condition, in the right auction setting, a black dirty example that sparks bidding competition can realize values upwards of $600,000 or more. This is not a fantasy, but a reflection of how collectors behave when rarity, history, and aesthetics align. The fact that the coin looks worn and dark only enhances its story. It shows survival through decades, perhaps passing through thousands of hands, before emerging as a prized artifact. Collector interest in the 1944 wheat cent is immense. Many collectors aim to complete a set of all wheat cents, and the wartime issues are especially desirable because of their historical context. Even novice collectors know the story of the 1943 steel cent and the return to copper in 1944, which gives these coins an educational appeal. Advanced collectors, meanwhile, seek unique examples, those with unusual toning, errors, or provenance. A black-colored, dirty 1944 penny without mint mark might be dismissed by a casual eye, but to a determined collector, it can become a centerpiece. This is why auction values can surpass $600,000 when bidding wars erupt. Next up, the 1942 Lincoln wheat cent is one of those coins that holds an unexpected charm in the coin-collecting world. At first glance, you might see scratches, pitting, and clear signs of damage that normally would reduce the value of almost any collectible coin. However, this particular 1942 large-date version without a mint mark has still managed to capture incredible attention. The historical context of this coin makes it especially interesting. 1942 was a year when the United States was deeply involved in World War II. Resources such as copper and tin were being diverted toward the war effort, which meant coinage was already becoming a subject of debate at the U.S. Mint. While the famous 1943 steel penny is often cited as the wartime cent, the 1942 copper cents played an equally important role as the transition period leading up to that emergency production. This was a time of experimentation, shortages, and extreme pressure on the mint to balance resource use with everyday commerce. The 1942 wheat cent without a mint mark means it was produced at the Philadelphia Mint. Philadelphia coins did not carry a mint mark at the time, which makes them distinct from Denver or San Francisco productions. The mintage for 1942 without mint mark cents was huge, well into the hundreds of millions, meaning this was not a rare coin by sheer numbers. However, what makes this particular coin stand out is not just its year, but the combination of its damaged appearance, large date style, and collector intrigue. The scratches and dots on both sides might appear like imperfections, but in the world of error collecting and numismatic study, these irregularities can sometimes signal unique minting anomalies or handling quirks that increase value rather than diminish it. This is because collectors often look for coins that tell a story, and a coin from 1942 showing such features becomes a conversation piece about wartime conditions, mint production techniques, and circulation realities. The design of the Lincoln wheat cent is also part of the enduring appeal. Designed by Victor David Brenner and first introduced in 1909, the coin features the profile of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, commemorating the 100th anniversary of his birth. This was the first time a U.S. president had appeared on circulating coinage, marking a shift in design philosophy. On the reverse, the wheat ears flanking the denomination symbolize prosperity and agricultural strength, two vital themes in early 20th century America. By 1942, the design was already over 3 decades old, but it remained iconic, deeply associated with American identity during a time of struggle and resilience. Collectors often debate why a damaged 1942 wheat cent could reach astronomical values in the auction market. The answer lies in rarity within condition categories, historical intrigue, and the storytelling value that accompanies such coins. Even in poor condition, some coins become extremely desirable when they represent turning points in history, minting anomalies, or when they are tied to popular collecting trends. The 1942 no mint mark large date cent has occasionally appeared in auctions where competitive bidding drove the price sky high, exceeding $500,000. This may sound unbelievable for a coin that could have been found in a junk box, but the demand for pieces tied to America's wartime economy and early Lincoln cent history creates an intense market. Serious collectors, particularly those building high-profile Lincoln collections or thematic wartime sets, are willing to pay whatever it takes to secure such a coin with provenance. Error enthusiasts also add fuel to the fire. Scratches and dots on both sides might not be official mint errors, but they spark conversation about die states, die clashes, planchet flaws, or post-mint handling anomalies. In some cases, these features may indeed represent minting oddities rather than simple wear. Collectors of error coins prize such pieces as part of broader research into minting history. Even when classified as post-mint damage, a coin like this can still capture attention because of its place in auction lore. Once a coin achieves recognition for an extraordinary sale, it develops a reputation that sustains demand even for future sales. The market often works on precedent, and record-breaking auction results reinforce value. The collector interest in this coin also ties to its accessibility. Many people own or come across 1942 wheat cents, but very few hold versions with such defining features and auction history. This creates a sense of hope and thrill for ordinary hobbyists. The idea that a coin sitting in a coffee can of change might be a hidden treasure worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. That psychological factor drives more attention to 1942 wheat cents in general, and increases demand across conditions. The symbolic power of Lincoln as an American icon also magnifies interest, since Lincoln Cents are among the most collected series in U.S. history, with countless entry-level and advanced collectors alike.